Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Crystal, and we've got another Fiberartsy Reads book chat video. It's a weekly wrap up. Yeah, let's talk about what I got into this past week as far as my reading. I've got some coffee here in my spooky Jack mug. Definitely gearing up for spooky season. Alright, so I hope that everyone's doing well, and thanks so much for tuning in. But let's just get right into what I read last week. Alright, let's do it. So the first thing I finished was Dust. Did I talk about this last week? I don't think so, but if I did, I apologize. I won't say too much because it is the third of a trilogy. This is by Hugh Howey. This is the third book of the Silo trilogy. And I really loved this third book. I really enjoyed it. It definitely, we got a little more information. It tied up some of the story while leaving it a little open for your interpretation of like what was going to occur next, And we got some, like I said, just got some more information, and yeah, I really enjoyed this the third book. So I won't say too much more again because it's the third book, but I love this series. I've ended up really enjoying the entire trilogy, and thanks to Scott over at Book Invasion for putting this read along together so that I can actually finally dive into it. It definitely made me pick these books up so that I've had on my shelf. So I've really enjoyed this, and it's definitely catapulted up to a favorite of dystopian post-apocalyptic type stories, which I personally like. So I like those kinds of stories, so it's definitely become a new favorite. And so I definitely recommend the series. Start off with Wool, of course, and get into it. It's really very enjoyable. So finish that one up. And then went into Babel 17 by Samuel R. Delaney. I listened to this on audio. The narrator is Stefan Rudnicki. I said that right. And this is a classic piece of science fiction. This is for Space Opera September, of course, and this is for the if I'm doing the season 1 kind of prompt, read a book that was published before you were born. This was published in the 60s sometimes. I forget the exact year, but anyway. So Samuel Delaney has a big work, or big body of work, and I've not read anything by him, so I said let's rectify that. And so I said, well, let's do Babel 17 first. Why not? So, and I liked this one. I like this one. It was pretty interesting. So we're in like a galaxy, a world, whatever. Humanity has sort of spread throughout the galaxy, and there's some sort of war going on. They're getting these sort of attacks, and through different places, and they're not quite sure, what's going on. Who are these people doing these attacks, right? And so the only clue that they have is some, I guess, transmissions, I guess you could say, that are in a language that they are calling Babel 17. So that's where the name comes from. So the government sort of pulls in this woman, and she's a prolific poet, but she's also a linguist, and she's very good with languages. And so she's pulled in to try to help, try to translate this language, and so they can try to predict where these next strikes will be, and just figure out the mystery of what's going on, who is attacking us, kind of thing. And so she kind of sets off, puts a crew together and kind of sets off to try to figure this out. And so that's basically what we're following, is her trying to figure out what's going on. And we definitely figure out what's going on, and it's actually super interesting. And this is a really smart book. I feel like I would benefit from a reread, actually, because it was very intelligently written, very well written, and very smart, and I feel like I could benefit from reading it with my eyeballs again, or like a second read, just so I can kind of get the nuances and the smartness of it. If that makes sense. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed it. It could be a little difficult at times to kind of like, what's going on here? So that's why I think a reread would be beneficial for me personally, or if I just initially read it first with my eyeballs. But again, overall, I thought it was great. So a good first experience with this author. So that makes me happy to read more, which is always good, right? Excuse me. And again, that's a check mark for Space Opera September, which I'm not doing all that great in. So, all right. So then I finished this book right here, Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I was doing this as a buddy read with Kelly from Kelly Hooked on Books. Thanks, Kelly, for helping me get through this one, because it's a big one. Because I really ended up liking this one a lot. I really did. Excuse me. I got new glasses. She's cute. Yeah, but I think they're rubbing me a little bit, so I might need to go get those readjusted. So sorry. I keep messing with my glasses. But anyway. Yeah, I really liked this book. And so what is this about? Well, it's a story. First of all, it's a story. We've got, what should I say? Okay. Our main character is this investigative journalist, first of all. His name is Scott. Scott, yes. His name is Scott. And sort of, earlier in his career, he had gotten kind of into making this story about this very elusive and like sort of cult director, film director named Stanislav Cordova. Stanislav is, or Cordova is, has a bunch of movies out there. They're like horror movies, and many of which you couldn't, are hard to even see. They were shown like underground and like all this kind of stuff. There's a big cult following of his movies, and they're called Cordovites, and like it's a thing. Like he's a thing, right? And he's never really seen in public, that kind of thing. He's very elusive and he's mysterious. So, but like I said, Scott had gotten sort of a tip on him and sort of made this accusation, and it kind of blew up in his face, and he was sort of ruined there for a bit, really. And not trusted again as far as his journalism. And he was someone who was very well thought of. Had written a bunch of books and things. So he was thought to be a very good journalist, but this sort of thing kind of was like, oh man, you didn't really do your job well with this. Right? So we pick up some years later, and Cordova's daughter, who is this young lady on the cover here, Ashley, is found dead. They're thinking that she has committed suicide. So this sort of sparks Scott's interest again in Cordova, and wondering is anything linked here. It just starts up this sort of obsession with Cordova again for Scott. So this is basically what we follow. We follow him as he just spirals down into this obsession of figuring out what happened to Ashley. Like, why did she kill herself? And excuse me. And where's Cordova? Why is he still not sane? That kind of thing. What happened to him? And now what happened to Ashley? And yeah, we just follow this story. Now he ends up working with a couple of folks that he meets along the way, and who help out a bit with his investigation. There's a guy named Hopper who knew Ashley personally, and then there's like a young woman named Nora who was one of the few people that saw Ashley before she died. So they get all kind of wrapped up in his story as well. But so we basically follow Scott as he goes out and does interviews with different people, like trying to figure out these mysteries of everything, right? And that's the story essentially. We figure out, we're just following him as he's trying to figure out what's going on, right? And this book it's an interesting ride, because at times I felt like, gosh, it felt a bit repetitive, because we're just like, something happens and then we go to another interview and we just are like this sort of verbal of like a salad of what this person has to say, and then we kind of go on to the next person, right? And it just kind of continues on through the book. But then, and so at times it felt long, but also I was like, yes, give me every single detail, because I want it all. So it was like a really kind of strange experience, because it's close to 600 pages long. I mean, it does have like a mixed media elements as well, like internet articles and like police reports, things like that, photographs. So it has that kind of stuff dispersed throughout, but it's it's still, that sometimes like felt a little long. But again, I was just like, but I want all of this. So it was strange. But so overall, I really enjoyed this story, and this is my second book by the author, and I really dig her style. I like her a lot, so I've got another one of her books on my shelf. So I think I'll definitely want to dive into that one sooner rather than later. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Just, if you're going into it, just know it's long, and know that it's a ride. Just stay in for the ride, and let it take you where it goes, kind of thing. I think if you go into it with that mentality, I think you'll enjoy it. And yeah, and one thing that I actually wish I knew beforehand was, I was, way over, probably halfway through it, and I'd flipped to the back of the book for some reason. I don't know, looking for something maybe. And I saw that there's actually bonus material that you can get as you are going through the story. And it's online, and you can pull up, there's like music. One thing is like a piece of music. There's like an interview with like a doctor. So if you have the physical book, if you ever see this bird symbol, it means it's related to something and you can just go right to Marissa's website and pull up that bonus material. And I wish I had that. I wish I'd known that before, so that I could listen or read these things as I went along. Because it does add, just another layer to the story. But that information was in the back of the book. I feel like it should have been like in front of the book. Like, oh, by the way, there's bonus material that you can listen to as you go. I still went back and listened to it, and it was fine, but I don't know. I just wish I knew that beforehand. But anyway, I thought this was really well written. It's a lot of detail. Like I said, a lot of detail in here about this story and all the, sort of the people that we meet along the way, and figuring out the details of this mystery. And I really loved it. I did really enjoy it. So would recommend it if you just kind of want to go for a journey, want to go for a ride with a mystery. Definitely recommend that one. All right, and then I listened to an audiobook for Cover by Jack Ketchum. Now this is for the That 70s Horror Reading Challenge, which is hosted by John over at Books of Blood. And this was for the prompt to read a book set during the Vietnam War or featuring a Vietnam vet. And this story features a Vietnam veteran. Again, this is a prompt I thought was very interesting. So now I didn't have any kind of books like that on my shelf. So when I was looking for something for this prompt, this book came up, and I said, oh, okay, yeah, I've been wanting to read more Ketchum, so let's get into this one, see what this one's about. So essentially, we've got, it's, some years after the war. I don't remember if it said exactly, but it's, we'll say anywhere from 5 to 10 years after the war. I don't know exactly. That's my feeling, we'll say. And our veteran is named Lee, and he's married and does have a child, but he has essentially removed himself from his life and is living out in the woods because he is scared that he will hurt his family due to his experiences in the war. Obviously, probably PTSD, right? He's suffering some trauma, and he feels like this is the only way that he will be safe for his family. And it's kind of sad, but that's a decision that he makes. Now, while he's out there living in the wood, he is also helping this guy grow some marijuana, but hey, whatever. You gotta make money somehow when you're living out in the woods, right? But he's doing the best that he can. He's coping, right? Now, on the flip side of this, we also have a couple of other characters who decide that it would be a great idea to just go camping in the woods one weekend. Okay? And yeah, these two parties meet, right? Now, the characters that come in camping, there's like an author and his wife and his model girlfriend, like his agent, and like a couple other guys. There's maybe like 7-ish people, and they're just looking to have a fun weekend and do some hunting and just hang out, right? So they come out to the woods and things doth occur, and Lee is just like, I'm not gonna have this, and so he starts kind of picking them off one by one, right? So there's some good killing scenes, if that's your thing, of Lee just taking no shit, and things like that. We do get some flashback scenes as well to Lee's time in Vietnam, to kind of fill in the story of why he made that decision that he did to live out in the woods. So we get that as well. Now, overall, this was fine for me. I think I ended up with like a 3-star if you're interested in a star rating. The campers that came in were like not super likable, so I don't know if I was supposed to feel sad that they were dying. Does that make me a terrible person? I don't know. There you go. And some of the flashback scenes to the Vietnam, his time in Vietnam, I don't know. It's like I get the point, but it also seemed a bit like I also didn't make me feel all that sad for Lee, because it was mostly just like his unit or whatever, like murdering kids and women and raping people. I don't know. I just was like, well, they were pretty shitty too. Now, I know that stuff occurred, but I don't know. I guess the only person that I actually felt kind of sad for was Lee's wife and his kid, right? Okay, yeah, the other people didn't deserve to be killed because they were just like going camping. They didn't mean any harm, right? But anyway, so I have mixed feelings about this story, I guess, is my point. But Ketchum he's a hell of a writer. He really is. He really sets the scene very well. You can see the forest, and you can really visualize these characters. You got some good backstory and kind of see what they were about, even if you didn't like them. Yeah. And so yeah, he could definitely write a story. This is my second book by him. I've only read off season, and so yeah, he can write a book, that's for sure. Now, one thing that actually I think helped me with this story was I read a version of this well, I listened to the audiobook, but it had a version that had like an updated prologue that had Jack Ketchum like kind of explaining like why he wanted to write this type of story. He wanted to write a story about a Vietnam veteran, and he did consult a Vietnam veteran, like a friend of his that was in the war, and got information from him that way. And it actually, excuse me, the story in general was inspired by something that he saw, I think like a news report about or something like that, where there was a Vietnam veteran who just went off to live in the woods because that was the only way he could cope. So it was, sort of pulled from a true story, essentially. So that actually does help, I think, add a sort of a layer to this story that I thought was great. So definitely read the prologue before getting into this book. But like I said, it was fine, and I'm glad I read it. And I definitely will continue reading Ketchum. I think. I don't know about Girl Next Door yet, but we'll see. So yeah. Okay, then I got into this one, Gerald's Game by Stephen King. I listened to this one on audiobook as well. I don't think I wrote the narrator down. I did not. And this was for, of course, the sort of Stephen King read-along that we're doing with Kelly over Kelly Hooked on Books is kind of taking the helm of, and we discuss on Brad Proctor's Discord. So this was our King book for September. And this was one I hadn't read yet, so I'm always excited when it's something I hadn't read yet. I hadn't seen the new movie I hadn't watched either, so like I knew the gist of the story, but it's kind of long. It's like, gosh, what actually happens in this book, right? And so, if you don't know, we've got a married couple who go away just for a night away and to a sort of remote cabin that they own, and they're getting a little frisky in the bedroom. The husband has handcuffed the wife to the bed frame, and then he proceeds to have a heart attack and die, leaving her handcuffed to the bed frame. So yeah, she's in a pickle. She's in a pickle. And so this, basically the story is her like trying to figure out how do I get out of here, right? And I had a rough start with this book. I will attest. The first chapter alone had 2 mentions of the R word, and I was like, oh god, it's gonna be one of those books. And then I hated both of the characters in the first few chapters. I really did. The husband was an asshole, and the wife seemed kind of like an asshole too. And so I was like, oh god, I don't want to read about this asshole woman the whole book, right? But okay, so I said, well, let me get a little more time, and see how it goes. So I did. It definitely pulled me in a little bit more as the story went on. I was definitely interested in what Jessie, the wife, I wanted to see how she got out of this, or if she got out of it, right? And so I was definitely, I gotta see, right? And so that part definitely pulled me in and wanted to know what was going on. And excuse me, got a frog in my throat this morning. So that definitely kept me interested in the story. And she goes into some of her past, and we learn things, and things like that occur, right? So this was fine for me. Again, that rough start really kind of soured me for the book. I'd give it probably like a 3-star if you're interested in a star rating. Star ratings you kind of take or leave, but it was fine. I'd be interested in watching the movie though, to kind of see how they interpreted the story. I think that would be fun to watch. Maybe one that my husband would watch with me. Cause I doubt it's like super scary. My husband's a chicken when it comes to horror movies, so but maybe I could get him to watch that one with me. So it's I could check it off my list of I've read the Stephen King books, and so I would like to ultimately one day in my life have read all of Stephen King's books, so I can make that check mark, and that's fine. And that's all that I finished. Ended up being a pretty good week. And I still had audiobooks, so I finished a lot of books. But really quickly, because this video is very long already, I'm in the process of reading a couple books. I did start Leviathan Wakes. I'm just a few chapters in, and into it so far. We've got this abandoned ship that's been found, and they're trying to figure out a cruise trying to figure out what's going on. I love that premise. And then I also started The Wrong Stars that I'm doing with a buddy read with my buddy Mike. I read one chapter of that last night. Hopefully dive into more of that this weekend. And so that's what I am currently reading. And I didn't get any books in the mail or anything. I'm trying to nix the book buying for a while. And that's it. This is a super long video. I do apologize. But I had a heck of a reading week. And as always, if you ever want more thoughts about a certain book, you want me to do like a sort of separate video about a book, if you want more detail, let me know. But other than that, that's gonna wrap it up for me. I hope you had a really good reading week. Have you read any of these books? Let me know. Or what did you read this week that you liked or didn't like? And let me know. I love to chat with you in the comments. I always appreciate that. And thanks so much for watching, as always. So appreciated. And I'll check you in the next one. Bye, guys.